This is a moment in Jewish history. Musicians have performed on army bases throughout Israel's many conflicts. This week, I interviewed Yitzchok Meir Malek, who has been singing to soldiers for the past 20 years, and has a new project called Notes of Strength. He discusses his thoughts on the current situation and compares it to his experiences during the Second Lebanon War of 2006.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. It's always great to be with you.
Okay, now I want to know about Notes of Strength, but first, where are you from and how long have you been performing at army bases?
I'm originally from New York. I moved to the Holy Land, Israel, alone when I was 17. I began performing for the IDF at the age of 18, and I've been doing it for 20 years now, thank God. It's really incredible. It began in the old city of Jerusalem, on the rooftop by Abba and Pamela Klayman, by their organization, Thank Israeli Soldiers, and slowly spread. Eventually, I was hired by the army themselves and began playing on bases, kind of in a chaplain position, even though I'm not an official rabbi. And I was doing around 4 bases a week, or 4 gedudim, 4 units a week, 4 performances a week for the IDF. And thank God, by now I've played for over 100,000 IDF soldiers. When I began performing for soldiers in the old city of Jerusalem, I did it in collaboration with my project entitled the Jewish Unity Project. The Jewish Unity Project aims to unite the diverse nation of Israel through reminding each and every one of us that we do not need to agree in order to love. When this war broke out, it became abundantly clear to me that there are 2 needs that needed to be filled. And number 1 was that the soldiers are coming back to base after crazy missions, and they need their morale boosted. The second thing that I found as a fellow musician was that the war pretty much destroyed the entertainment industry, and there weren't many concerts. So I began fundraising in order to pay bands to perform for soldiers on base and to boost their morale. They say kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I guess what I'm talking about here is hatching 2 eggs with 1 incubator, producing great life and giving the troops the love that they need.
Now, what's it like to perform on an army base? I mean, some of these bases may be in dangerous areas, and you go to some place in the middle of nowhere. Is there a stage? Is there electricity?
I can give you 3 examples, 3 interesting things that happened recently. I'm actually going back down to Otif Aza, to the Gaza Strip tonight to perform for soldiers on base. First time I went down to the Gaza Strip, on the way out, they did not give us an escort, the IDF. They escorted us in. We needed an escort to get in because it was literally driving over sand dunes in between blockades built on sand dunes. I could not believe what effort it took to get in. The amount of tanks that we saw, the D9, these humongous bulldozers, so strong. Seeing this might and seeing this force will blow your mind. It took tremendous effort to get in, and they said we didn't need an escort to get out. So we drove out, and we lost our way. And we found ourselves somewhere in between the bases and Gaza. We finally found a fence after maybe 15 minutes of driving around looking for a way out of these sandy paths surrounded by bushes and trees. We found the fence. We realized the fence was closed. Up drives a car, and they roll down their windows, checking us out with their jaws dropped, and they're like, "You guys are on the wrong side of the fence." And we're like, "We know. How do we get out?" They said, "If you drive straight, you might hit Be'eri." And we're like, "Oh my gosh, Be'eri!" There was just a massacre there. Anyways, there was not incredible usage of GPS and maps down there because the IDF literally restructured the whole entire area and sometimes turn off the GPS. So we had to use a regular map to get out, and thank God we did. But there was a half an hour where our hearts were in our mouths. So that's one story that happened down there. Another interesting thing, we were back down in the Otef for a different time on the Gaza Strip, and this time we were performing for Tzanchanim, for paratroopers. There was all these tents set up with screens inside, and while we were playing, someone came over and said, "We need you guys to lower the volume for a few minutes. We're on a negotiations phone call with hostages." Couldn't believe it. And I didn't know that was going on literally where we were playing. And so we lowered the music, and eventually they said, "Okay, done deal." And we can put the music back on. Surrounded by tents. The scene is loud noises. There's explosions. There's drones flying overhead. There's airplanes, helicopters. There's battlefield illumination lights in the sky. Another time we went to this tank parking lot along the Gaza border. We set up the sound system. This time there was electricity. All of a sudden, someone comes and starts hanging balloons between 2 tanks and then puts up a sign that says, "Will you marry me?" in Hebrew, and then rolls out a red carpet. And next thing I know, everyone's over there. And it was an engagement. And a soldier asked his now fiancee to marry him, and she said yes. And that was really beautiful.
How would you compare this from the beginning in October till now? We're already in December.
I'll tell you what, in general, I feel that people begin to become a little bit numb or they lose the feeling that they had when this originally began. But I think it's very important not to forget what happened and what we're fighting for. Now, how important it is that we sometimes know when to stop and sometimes we know when not to stop. How important it is that we go all the way. The feeling of the Chayalim, their morale is high, thank God, and it has a lot to do with notes of strength and has a lot to do with coming and boosting the morale and everyone who's sending support. We just played for regiments and we went up north. They were stationed for 58 days straight without a break, and they got 2 days break, and they requested that we come make a barbecue, make a concert. The love these guys are getting is beyond, and this kind of thing only happens inside of Israel.
You've been doing this for about 20 years, and I'm curious, how does this compare to the Second Lebanon War? There was also like mini wars in between with Gaza. How do you feel after all these years?
Yeah, I can tell you that in the Second Lebanon War, my friend Michael Levin, who's actually been made pretty famous as the token lone American soldier who gave his life, who passed away fighting for us in Lebanon, I was extremely shooken up by that because, we kind of made Aliyah together. We moved to Israel together. I bawled so hard at his funeral, and I think there's even a video you could see of him carrying his casket, and I'm there walking along, trying to help out and crying so hard. And I think that hit really close to home. That kind of thing hitting close to home happened tenfold during this war because there was so many tragedies, and the veracity of these tragedies, of these massacres, it really just hit close to home for everyone. And I think that's a big difference here, is that the whole entire nation is affected. And while, yes, there was an operation in Gaza in 2009 and 2014, and we did go play for the troops down there, it is nothing like it is now, where all of the residents of the South have been cleared out. Meanwhile, back then, they were not cleared out of their homes. And I think there's a tremendous understanding now that we need to be thinking about our security in a whole other light and our protection over world opinion. And I pray that we can take our good intentions and put them into action.
This has been a moment in Jewish history. For more information on Notes of Strength, you can email notesofstrength@gmail.com, where you can send an actual note to an Israeli soldier. Thank you to Yitzchok Meir Malek. Thank you to all the listeners, and Shalom.